Hello, I'm William Jamar Wright,
And I'm Hattie.
and this is our podcast, HattieJo. What are we doing? So how are you doing?
I'm tired today.
Tired today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good, yeah. Just another day, ready for a shorter week.
That's
as
right.
we enter into April here. But this is our March podcast. And so in honor of March being International Women's Month, I wanted to I wanted to kind of talk about like teachers, female teachers that kind of had an impact on our lives, and teachers that we just highlighting and celebrating women teachers. Because I am a male teacher, I teach here in Phoenix, but 5% of my coworkers are females, and they do such a great job. And I remember growing up, 95% of my teachers were all females, and I can definitely remember you definitely remember all of the male teachers, just because they were so well, not all of them, but a large percentage of
Just
them.
'cause they're
There's
so
such a
rare.
few, and then but they do female teachers do such they do such a great job, and you oftentimes don't appreciate them until you're our age, and you're
Spoken like a true old man.
So I just wanted to kind of take an episode and just kind of in honor of Women's Month, and just kind of
Great.
celebrate some female teachers. So
Great.
are there any teachers that kind of stand out from you from elementary or middle school?
So I will say, when I first asked you what the podcast topic was for this month, you had mentioned, influential teachers in your life, but somehow I missed the women teachers. So I had one person in particular I was going to talk about, but
Well, we
he's
can
a
talk
male.
about
We'll still talk
because-
about it. But to your point about in elementary school, I had the same teacher for first and second grade.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and so I was at one school for first, second, and third grade, and a second school for fourth, fifth, and sixth grade.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in first and second grade, when I was in first, second, and third grade, the teacher just happened to move from first to second grade at the same time I was moving from first to second grade. Whereas at my second elementary school, the classes were all joint. So when I was in fourth grade, it was there were third graders and fourth graders in my class. And when I was in fifth grade and sixth grade, both of those years there were fifth and sixth graders in my class. And that was because we were part of the GT program, and there weren't enough students to fill out a full class of each. And so I have to give a shout out to teachers that teach 2 grades at one time.
Well, I didn't realize we watched Abbott Elementary, and they talked about how Mrs. One of the teachers has 2 grades. She has I think
The
she has
red-haired one.
Yeah, she has 2 grades in her classroom, and I was just oh, this is an only
Only in the movie type thing. No, this does happen in real life.
Yeah.
And I mean, also those classes, part of the reason that they have that is because some students were way advanced in everything. Other students were way advanced in some subjects, but not others. And other students were way advanced in some subjects and then a little behind in some subjects. So it really felt like all of the curriculum was super customizable to where that particular child was at. And that also has to be really hard.
Oh, yeah.
Because now you're not just okay, I'm teaching everybody decimals. It's well, I've got half of my class doing algebra, and then I've got a couple of people doing advanced decimals, and then I might have somebody not quite there yet. Do you know what I mean? How do you come up with a lesson to teach that effectively to everybody, right? So anyway, my hats are off to them, and I would say, of elementary school, probably the most influential teacher for me was Miss Rose. She was my first and second grade teacher. And I just had so much fun in her class. And she was already an older woman at that point, fully gray hair. You know, I think I mistakenly called her grandma one time because that's how old she was, you know, like, but she just was super patient, super calm, and she did a really good job of incorporating play into class. Like, I remember she had this sock puppet called Greedy Gertie that would teach us about math, and like specifically it would teach us like greater than and less than signs because the mouth would be eaten.
Yeah.
And as opposed to just like, let's imagine this has a little mouth, like she literally had a puppet and would, you know, we would play, right? And then she also had, if you were to turn in your homework and like do certain behaviors, you would get progress towards the prize box. I guess it was a trunk. It was the prize trunk, and you could get like little prizes. And I loved it, and like you could play
right
with
your
your
alley.
yeah, it was right up my alley.
Do what I'm
like
supposed to do when you get rewarded.
that's exactly right. And she also another thing I remember that I don't necessarily know is like a direct result of her, but one of my good friends who actually graduated high school with me as well. We've been in class together since first grade all the way through high school, which, given the number of schools I've switched from and everything, I feel like that's kind of amazing. But anyway, his name was Paul Vasquez, and he and I would compete with each other on the math times table, like the math.
Oh, yeah.
So we have these, you probably have them too, where it's like you have 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, and there's 100 problems, and it starts out with all addition, and then all subtract, or I don't know the exact sequence, but like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and each one is harder and harder. And then they also will have some that incorporate, some of all four or some of two of the four, whatever. And you have to get a certain percentage before you can go on to the next level up, right? And so Paul and I were like ahead of the rest of the class, and we would be like neck and neck with each other like the whole time. I think at the end of the year when we finished it up, he was one ahead of me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like there was some point in time where I didn't quite get enough or like something, and I remember being so angry about it, like, and just like practice. Oh my god. But anyway, so I thought she did a really good job. I know I didn't give many examples of the incorporating play, but I do have other memories of like doing play, but it was still learning.
Yes.
And I think that's really important for kids because play, I think, is a really important way to learn. First of all, just for like when you're in childhood, right? When you're at home, you're playing with your little kitchen set. Like that's part of your learning. You're playing with different things. So I think that was good, and it just made things fun. It's important for kids to have fun.
It definitely is important for them.
So I was excited to have her again for second grade, and shout out to Miss Rose.
Nice.
How about
it's
you?
funny, like thinking about like elementary school, I think like a teacher that stands out to me is Miss Mackey. And I think she taught I'm pretty sure she taught either third or fourth grade. But I had her, and like for some reason I feel like I have disdain for her, like because she was like, I feel like she was very strict, but like looking back on it, especially now that I'm a teacher, like I'm like, you know what, like I was probably doing stuff that I shouldn't be doing in class, and like
it was probably annoying.
And like just kind of being a teacher now gives me so much more appreciation for like what I like I endeavorably put her through as a teacher. And I know like she only had like my best interest at heart.
Right. And your end, your future and potential.
Yeah. And so I really like.
So what were some of the things that she was strict about? Do you recall?
I don't know. I just like.
You just have a
recollection of her being strict, and it was mostly about like not doing what I was supposed to be doing in class. Like I would choose class time to do other things, as opposed to like paying attention or like. I'm pretty sure like I don't recall like not finishing my work. I would just finish my work and then like misbehave in some way, form, or fashion. Because I felt like I was pretty good. Like I remember always wanting to like finish my work and like finish the assignment. It was just after I finished the assignment that's when not so good choices were being made.
Mm-hmm.
And so Miss Mackey definitely in elementary school. I think once I got to like middle school, or like we called it intermediate school, middle school, it was Mrs. Frazier. Um, Mrs. Frazier was my 6th grade teacher, and like this is like around the time that like you start liking like people of the opposite sex, and like for boys like we're doing like childish things like picking on girls, like because have no other way of like expressing our like
Interest.
our interest. And like she would like always tell us, she'd be like, yeah, like like you should, like you probably like such and such if you're doing these things, like you should, like it's okay to like tell them that you like them, and like maybe they'll like you back or maybe they won't, but like
look at this progressive lesson.
Yeah. But like she was just like, you got like, she was just like help us like, or she would just talk to us in a very like real, like matter of fact.
Not make you feel awkward about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like everyone's going through this, everyone's doing it, or everyone's like experiencing these like emotions.
Right.
And it turns out like she actually like is a distant cousin of mine through like my grandma Sarah and like her grandma.
Did you like meet her at her family reunion?
Yeah,
one
like
time?
we were like met at a family reunion. It was like, oh, like what are you doing here? It's like Nellie Benson's my grandma. It's like what? Yeah. So we were distant cousins, but we honestly didn't find this out until like I was in like high school.
Sure.
So I was like, oh, like what are the chances? But it's like the world is so small. You're just like, never would have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Mrs. Mackey, Mrs. Frazier, I would say also Mrs. Williams. Like she wasn't necessarily my teacher, but she was like an like school administrator, like, and she worked within the school system. And like I definitely got on her nerves and she got on my nerves. But like I'm very like thankful.
Sounds like you'd be sent down to the administrator.
Yeah. Quite a few times. So just not making good choices. But yeah, like it's funny. She lived up the street from my grandma Catherine, and so like her son Ben, he and I were kind of like the best 2 athletes in our grade at the time in like middle school, and so like I would go up to like their house and like play with him on the weekends and stuff when I was at my grandma Catherine's house, and so like over time like I mellowed out a little bit and started making better choices, but like it's interesting to think about like how like I felt like she was really strict on me, but like she did like like I think all like the teachers like they wanted the best for me, and like they knew that like me acting up or like getting in fights or like not doing my best, like that wasn't gonna help me like reach my full potential. So I definitely am appreciative of them. And it's funny, like there are so many like female teachers that like did such a great job in helping like cultivate like the value of education and like taught at such a high level that like they set like literally the foundation to let me like go on to Duke and like be successful. Be successful. And I don't think they just don't get the respect,
the recognition,
and the respect and recognition that they all deserve, because they definitely like they do a great job, and like it's a hard job. It's a really hard job, but like they do the best they can, and like I hopefully like this podcast is kind of giving them a little sunshine and a little light for all of their efforts and how many kids they've impacted over their life. Because I'm sure I'm not the first, nor will I be the only student that like those teachers had an impact on and made a difference. And there are so many like countless other teachers that do a great job, that are like special education or like extracurricular, like
just so many female teachers in a profession that like our society needs, and it's like
And
so
depends
valuable.
on,
Depends
yeah.
on, yeah, and yeah, it's just a little thank you.
Yeah, good. So do you have any, like, are there any lessons that you carry with you, especially now as being a teacher, that you try to, you know, you think back and you're like, oh, that was really good, or like, oh, I really received that well, or is it not really at the forefront of your mind?
It's not really at the forefront of my mind, and I honestly don't really remember like specific things that we did in elementary school. And also, like, I feel like the times have changed so much. Like, kids have like watches, they have like their technology has like improved so much. Like, we use computers to take state testing. Like, I didn't get on a computer until I got to high school.
Yeah,
until I typing. And so like there are all these great things that if I could remember them, then like there may be good things that was good for that time. But in this time period, I'm not sure if they're like
relevant anymore. I guess I was meaning less about like this is how you deliver the lesson on fractions, and more about like some behavioral techniques, or you know, things they might have said to you to try to help you make better choices moving forward, or anything like that.
No, not really. I think like the school that I work at, like they have a set like behavioral plan that we try to get students to adhere to, and like the school has a system that they want the teachers to adhere to, and so that's really where I get my own personality, and using that teach like a champion, that model. That's what I kind of use in the classroom.
Gotcha. So is there anyone from high school or beyond that comes to mind as an outstanding kind of teacher? Or influential in some way?
So there was a couple of math teachers. So math was always my like favorite subject. But Mrs. Bullard, she was a math teacher. I want to say like my sophomore year. She did a great job, and like her like son, like he ended up playing football at my high school, and so like I would interact with him a little bit because he was a few years younger than me. But like little kids camps and stuff like that, or kids camp, youth camp, I would interact with him, and so like I remember she was a good like teacher. She was hard, but she was good. Mrs. Dillard, I think her name is. She was another math teacher. She also coached volleyball at the school. But Mrs. Dillard, Mrs. Dillon, she was another like influential teacher. And I actually randomly saw her at a Brene Brown event. And so it was cool to run into her there. But yeah, I would say those are some, like, from high school, those are some teachers that stood out.
Nice. That's great.
Well, thank you, teachers. You guys do a great job, and female teachers in particular. Males, get out there and pick up our numbers. We gotta get more teachers in there. But I definitely appreciate the female teachers. You guys do so much great work, and it is definitely appreciated. So thank you guys.
And that is what we're doing.
Deuces.